Thank you.
Comrades, I make it 1957 now. What I propose we do is give each of our guest speakers a minute. Please don't feel obliged to speak, just in case there's any key points you want to come back in. And then I propose we just spend a few minutes. I think we've got an agreement on a possible way forward, but I just want to check that out with the meeting. So, Han, um, would it be? Would you like to come back in for a minute or so, Han, on the what's been an excellent meeting? I hope everybody agrees. Floor's yours.
I'll throw a few things out, which has been such that I've picked up. So, some brilliant structural descriptions from Socialist Federation. I loved hearing about the Tusk 2 systemic campaigning and anti-capture regulations. I would like to propose that the speakers today get in a room and think about what it would be like if you let your existing campaigns go and get behind Solma. So there's a challenge to your egos, which I think we've all got an ego, but just a suggestion of a thought experiment. What would it be like to put all those ideas together? Because I think we're saying a lot of very similar things. So why are we split up into these different groups? Get in a room and see. And I say get behind Solma because I think Solma, you're a brilliant leader, and we need those people at the to lead us. I'll stop there. I'm tripping over my own thoughts. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Han. Um, Sean Frank, would you like to come back in, Sean?
Yes, thank you, comrades.
Thank
And
you.
again, really important contribution from Hannah. Yeah, I'd be willing to have that discussion. So I think the key thing is, in terms of how do we move forward, how do we unite the left? It's clear that we do agree on a lot, but we do need a structure. And I really appreciate what Siobhan said about the energy is coming locally. I mean, there's so many initiatives that all of us here won't even know about, incredible ideas and energy. And we need to learn from those struggles and unite them. That's really the way forward as I see it. And without that, again, we're just talking to ourselves, right? But it's so important that we provide a platform so that we can raise these voices and actually implement these ideas, and learn from each other and actually begin that process of rebuilding the left. In a lot of ways, we're fragmented because of the history in Britain. But from that fragmentation, there is a lot of different ideas. And frankly, we need to bring a lot of that together. Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sean. Ian?
Thank you, comrades. Many
Thank you.
excellent contributions. It's been a pleasure to listen. Um, I want to dissent a little bit from some of them, though. Firstly, we have, as I said, lived through an important time, particularly with the genocide in Gaza, bringing hundreds of millions of people together around the world. But it has also been, of course, a period of defeat. We can't look back and say, well, we have stopped the genocide in Gaza. We can't. If we look at your party, the Democratic left was defeated. And the consequence is that through Jeremy Corbyn's prevarication and deliberate sabotage, what we've seen is a party reduced to what exactly we don't know. We're told, for example, about 50,000 members. Let's just look at Durham, for example, where I was told that we had 421 members. How many were present at the founding, the formal founding of the Durham branch? Eight. Eight. Plus one CEC member and her minder. So there were 10 people in the meeting. And they've only just about managed to get all the officers for that party branch. So your party has effectively been defeated. And unfortunately, the groups that have done admirable work. I mean, when you look at the proto branches, what an extraordinary piece of work that was on so many people doing precisely the kinds of grassroots organization that so many of you have spoken so highly of. And the attempt was on the part of Socialist Federation, Connections, to actually keep some of this together. And I've been supportive of both those initiatives and been to both those conferences and will continue to support them. But it is a period of defeat. And so therefore, I believe it's necessary to actually, it's worth doing some theory. It's worth also recognizing that there are periods, and one of the reasons why we need a party is not to get us through the high points, but actually to get us through the low points, to keep people together at a time when we need to think about how we're to go forward. For example, we'll be launching a ABC of Marxism in the autumn. And I think the point about learning from our history is that we don't keep making the same bloody mistakes over and over again. And therefore, I think it is worth studying theory. And it's worth understanding where we are at the present. One of the features, for example, I mean, having spent so many hours on demonstrations against the far right, where people just feel that what we need to do is just shout and call them Nazis or fascists or whatever else, is to recognise why those organisations have grown at all. And I would respectfully suggest that one of them is the abandonment of class politics. There's a whole section of the world's population that doesn't feel anybody speaking for them. And so what you end up with is a hodgepodge of organisations who feel that you can just some sort of vague populism. We need to understand class politics. We're going to go through a period in which we're going to be forced to choose between guns or butter. Living standards are going to be cut, and there's going to be massive attacks on the working class to pay for a growing war against Russia and ultimately, of course, against China. So we need theory and we need to understand the present. Let's just one final thing. The Greens are not our friends. Let's not, again, make the same old mistakes. I've seen so many people in your party who, once they were utterly disillusioned with your party, oh, we'll just go off and join the Greens. We were making exactly the same mistake. You're following a reformist group that ultimately, Tony Greenstein's already been expelled. So we're already repeating the same kind of story of expelling anti-Zionist Jewish people. And what Zach Polanski's not going to cave in? He's already caved in, and he'll cave in again. So let's get this straight. We need to patiently build a party, and sometimes it takes that kind of revolutionary patience. If it includes political education, if it includes grassroots activity, of course, all of those things. But but we absolutely need a party with a definite program of what we mean by socialism.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you. Clive, floor's yours, comrade.
Okay, thanks. Well, first of all, I'd just like to say that I'm not pessimistic. And I think that some of the comments in the meeting today about the collapse of the trade unions, the lack of representation and so on, and also the lack of models, even in Britain, I think are wrong. Let's not forget, when the Labour Party was established in 1900, it involved Marxist organisations in the Social Democratic Federation, along with trade unions, along with mass workers' organisations.
Sorry, Clive, I don't know if you can hear us, comrade. We appear to have lost you. Yeah. I think, I suspect Clive's going to come back straight in, Roger, but I think due to the fact we're actually overrunning now, comrade, would you like to come in now, Roger, and we'll
Yeah.
Clive in? Yeah. Oh, no,
Sorry.
Clive's back. Sorry.
Right,
Clive,
okay.
we lost you again there, comrade.
I think let's not forget I shouldn't do meetings on my phone. That's the most important lesson from this meeting. But being serious, I think I was making the point at this stage that there's no, there is cause for optimism. The trade unions, for example, in 2017, it was the lowest number of strikes since 1893. But that changed in 2022 with the strike wave we saw then. There's been a revival in that sense of trade union struggle. And we shouldn't forget if all the talk about how many workers are organised, in 1900, when the Labour Party was established, only 10% of the workforce, of the labour force, were in the trade unions. There was more domestic servants than there were trade unionists at that stage. I think we're in a different situation, and I don't agree with some of the pessimistic conclusions. But let's discuss that. That's, we shouldn't fall out and say we can't be in different organisations if we disagree over such issues. But my main point in response to issues that have been raised in the discussion and in the chat as well, lots of comrades have spoken about trust, the need to build relations and so on, but I haven't really heard any answers. I put a question in the chat about, well, what was wrong with the method that we used of consensus, a federation, which allowed the Socialist Party and the SWP and other organisations. There's a list of at least 12 different socialist organisations that were involved at some stage in the Tusk structures, including George Galloway's Workers' Party for a period. It allowed us to sit in the same room or on the same Zoom and reach agreement, including, by the way, for 10 years with an 80,000 strong trade union. That federal structure, that federal method worked in bringing together the left. Of course, there are broader issues about why it didn't lead and hasn't led at this stage to a new mass workers' party, including the victory of Jeremy Corbyn in 2015, the accidental victory as leader of the Labour Party, which gave a whole new impetus to the possibility that perhaps the left could, or socialist ideas could gain a majority in the Labour Party, and shifted the equation for 5 or 6 years at that stage. So those methods should be looked at, and I would stress it's not a question of ego. Let's not try and personalize this. And I honestly don't know what more I can say. That the Tusk banner, that method, is available to every comrade in the room, every organisation in the room, as much as it is to the individuals and organisations currently involved in Tusk. What's is it about? Yes, you can take control of this. That the comrades don't understand. You can take control of it. Everyone can participate in Tusk with equal rights, and with a method that has been able to achieve some unity in the past, and can, I think, in this vacuum that's been created by the failure of your party, and can allow us to contribute to the regroupment that we need at this stage.
Thank you, Clive. Roger, the floor is yours, comrade.
Right, thank you, comrade. I won't take very long, but I do want to make a couple of quick points. I agree with one point that Clive said. I don't agree that this is a time for pessimism or despair. Yes, there are terrible dangers and terrible threats looming ahead of us. We're seeing, as I said before, the planet is on fire. The far right is on the offensive. But I think sometimes it's the whip of counter-revolution, if you like, spurs on the movement of the working class. We're not in 1933. We're not in 1973 in Chile. This is not the end of a period of struggles where the working class has become exhausted and defeated. On the contrary, it's the arrogance and stupidity of the what is now taken on the leading sections of the ruling class. In other words, the billionaires, and especially the trillionaire Elon Musk. They've dispensed with any idea of diplomacy or strategy or planning or any kind of perspective or foresight. They're simply going in the same way that Trump has blundered into a war with Iran, which is ending with a catastrophe for American imperialism. It's a complete defeat, and despite the fact that, of course, on the way out it can do a huge amount of damage. In the same way, but the same analogy is the Elon Musk in financing horrible creatures like Tommy Robinson and Rupert Lowe is committing the same stupidity. It's going to blow up in the face because it will be the spur which is going to mobilize action. I agree with Steve, with Clive. In the last 2 or 3 years, we saw a movement of struggle of the trade unions in Britain. I think partly that lapsed because with the election of a Labour government, there was a certain period when people think, well, maybe, surely at least, there's going to be some relief, there's going to be some concessions and so on. And of course, the fact that that Starmer has completely betrayed any scintilla of hope in that direction, or on the contrary, has gone even further than the Tories in attacks on the working class and on and with measures of austerity and cuts in welfare and racist policy on immigration and all the rest of it. Because of that, there's been this backlash, and in despair and in absolute desperation, some more backward people have clutched onto reform and thinking that that's a way out of it. But what I think now is that with the attacks that are coming, and particularly if we got a reform government, then what we would see is a huge mobilization and new opportunities open up and whole new elements in the population and young people particularly who will be mobilized and coming into action, and that will give us a far different medium in which to work. Up until now, we've got to say, most of us here are hardened, seasoned activists with, well, in some of our cases, decades of political activity behind us. But there's going to be new people coming into the struggle, which is going to provide a much fresher and more optimistic and positive atmosphere for us to work in. Now, what about us? Now, we've got all the comrades here are people who've been working hard to try to salvage something from the wreckage of your party and to try and fill the vacuum that I talked about in my contribution and to try to get access once again to the hundreds of thousands of people who responded first to the call for a new party of the left, for a new socialist party. And I think, in that situation, we are going to be, we're going to find ourselves with unheard of new opportunities in the period that's opening up. It'll be a hard period. There'll be setbacks, there'll be defeats, but new upsurges and new struggles. And I think we all have to prepare for that. Meanwhile, we have to keep up these dialogues, but also we need to unite. We've got a lot of comrades here who each are doing their own thing, and each with the best of intentions, thinking, let's form an alternative, let's form something which can give us a basis to go forward. Well, we have to work together on that. We have to perhaps organise a conference in which all the people who've been around, all of the different groups and all of the different initiatives that have been taken, perhaps we can try again to get a united uh, a unity and a basis on which we can start to build something. I think there's a hugely optimistic future ahead of us if we can agree to do that. Thanks, comrades.
Thank you, Roger. Solma, the floor is yours, comrade, if you'd like to make a final contribution.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry to have missed the earlier part of the meeting, so not aware what's been said. But the last part, have made me realize that we shouldn't say socialist has been defeated or we're going through period of defeat. We shouldn't, because I see a real positive in us, us socialists, and I see a real chance for us socialists to organize ourselves, do something. And I would also say, please, don't say your party is dead until it is dead. We are trying to find a way out of this horrible situation that we are in, because your party was our future, was our dream, was our aspirations. We gave, years to build this party. I myself, spent about 3 years in Transform, just talking about building this national party, and quite a few people from Transform are here tonight, and I don't think like them. I am not prepared to give up yet, because socialism, capitalism hasn't worked. And the only thing is going to work is socialism. If we can really, work together, unite together, I don't know what will come out of tonight, but your title was a brilliant title, and that should bring everybody together. Socialist Federation, CMWP, Connection, everybody. We need to somehow become a big, great national movement that brings everybody together, and we don't care what color or creed you're from, whether you're Marxist or Lenin or Maoism, we don't care. What we care, what the country needs at the moment, and that is, class politics, and that is a politics for the working class that works, what I see every day around my area, Clacton just round the corner, Jaywick just round the corner from where I live. They are not going to, wait for Farage. They might have Farage taking advantage of all their situation, but some of them are waking up. And final thing I would say, don't sound defeated. It's not over. We just have to come together and organize ourselves. Connection has been a good example of how grassroots can organize, and we can do far bigger, far better. If we just believe in ourselves, that because I said before, status quo is not an option. It hasn't worked for us, so we have to make it work for us. And the only way we can do that, if we build a much bigger organization that everybody comes together with an objective of defeating fascism and eradicating poverty from this country for good.
Excellent, Salma. Excellent note to finish on. Comrades, I think tonight that I'd like to thank everybody. I think in the finest socialist traditions, every contribution's been fantastic tonight. I'd like everybody to thank everybody for attending. I've picked up, comrades, that what we've got an agreement tonight, that we do know what's at stake. We do agree that we need to be united. As the title of the meeting was, United we stand, divided we fall, bringing the left together. And as several people have said tonight, I think there's an agreement that we do need to come together. We do need to keep talking, whether that's round at Salma's for a cup of tea, as Hannah suggested. Yeah, a year ago, many of us on this call were working together for the creation of a new party. It'd be fantastic if after tonight,
yes,
we could start to build. Sorry,
come
Salma.
to Clacton. Come to Clacton. It's very near my home, so we'll have a cup of tea.
Fantastic. Tea for 60, please, Salma. But on a serious note, comrades, our people, it's not a vote. If people are agreeable that we do need to meet again, let's continue this dialogue. Let's get together again soon, and let's make the next meeting bigger. And whether we're aiming for some form of event, but let's remain united. Let's look at what we can work together on. And I look forward to working with everybody on this call in the near future as we move forward to socialism, not barbarism. Thank you, comrades.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Brilliant sharing.
Thanks,
Night, everybody.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your evenings, comrades.
Eric,
Thank you.
cheers. All the best.
Night all. Great
Very well.
meeting.
Thanks, Eric. Everybody else. Thanks, comrades.